From Cornwall to Birmingham and Johnston and Bexhill, here's Ruben Spar on the radio.
Hello to Nymphya. How are you today?
I am great. How are you, Ruben?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for letting me chat to you today. So, can you tell me how long have you been a singer-songwriter for?
Oh, I wrote my first song when I was 5 years old. So I've always wanted to be a singer-songwriter. And I found an old accordion in our family attic. And I was like, oh, what's this? And so I brought it and dragged it down the steps. It was this big, heavy thing, and sat in my room and wrote a song. Actually, excuse me, I was 6 years old. I wrote a song called Goodbye, Darlin'. It was a country song. And I was really proud of myself. It's not such a good song, but that's the first song I ever wrote. So, and then I was writing songs even in when I was 13, 14, and then in high school, and then in college. My first degree was mechanical engineering, which is silly. So while I was a mechanical engineering major, I was playing in bands and I was writing some songs then. And then I said, this is not what I should be doing. I went to music school, studied classical music, became an opera singer. And while I was focusing on that, I didn't do a lot of writing for obvious reasons, because opera singing is a pretty massive undertaking. And so I did that for a long time. And then finally, I felt like I'd kind of done all I wanted to do in the opera world. I sang at San Francisco Opera, New York City Opera, with San Francisco Symphony. I sang a bunch of roles that I really loved, like the witch in Hansel and Gretel, one of my favorites. And then I decided I really wanted to do what I always wanted to do since I was 6 years old, is be a singer-songwriter. So that's when I launched Nymphya and started writing the songs for the first album around 2014. So that was about 9 years ago when I very first sat down to start creating my Nymphya music.
So you got your own studio there, but do you go elsewhere to record, like a proper studio? And that sounds a bit wrong, but to a proper studio?
My studio is improper. I do. It depends on what I'm doing. Like for the first album, which is Dream Dance, and here's the CD of Dream Dance, I recorded everything here except for some drums that I outsourced. And then we mixed everything here. And on that album, I actually played all the instruments except for the bass and the drums and a couple of the piano parts that a friend of mine came over here and recorded. And I realized after I made that album, moving forward, it was so much work to do everything myself. I was like, oh, I can't do that again. It was too much work. It took so long to make that album because of that. So after that album, my second album, I went to an outside studio, and I went to a studio here in Petaluma called Room with a View Studios, a beautiful, beautiful place, because I know the recording engineer who runs the studio, and he has all this incredible vintage gear, Neve preamps for the mics and Neumann microphones, and just, it's a beautiful studio with great sound. And my second album, which is Naked Kate, which is my all acoustic cover album of Kate Bush material, since she's my primary influence. I really wanted to have a beautiful acoustic sound, because we were using acoustic guitars and our voice. So I really wanted, you need good mics, you need a good signal, really well recorded. So that's why I went to Jamie's studio for this album, and I recorded this one fully over at his studio. And I invited New Orleans musician Alex McMurray to come and collaborate with me, because he's a phenomenal guitar player. I was just listening to this about 2 weeks ago and going, oh my gosh, I love this album. I love all my albums so much. And then for my latest album, what have I forgotten? I worked in this studio here, which is called Ŵhʉyah Music Studios. And I also worked at Vives Music Studios with an incredible producer and musician named Francisco Vives, who is a keyboard player and also a really good drum programmer, because he also was a drummer. So a lot of times, keyboard players will often program drums too, but because he is and was a drummer, he understands drum parts and how to put them together. So I worked on all the vocals and the basic tracks here. And then I would bring the song, which I've laid out in the timeline with the scratch vocals, over to Fran's studio. And then he and I would start working on all the other parts at his place, bass parts, keyboard parts. Then any guitar parts, I came back, recorded here. The final vocals, I recorded here. The final bass tracks, I recorded here, because I also work with a phenomenal bass player named Ray Schaefer, who does my mixing. And then we mixed it all here as well. So, you know, and I'm sure every musician is like that. It really depends on what is being called for, where you record things. On this album, What Have I Forgotten, I also had some phenomenal guest musicians from Ireland. Declan Masterson, who was the music director for Riverdance, played the Celtic flute on this album. He also has played on Van Morrison albums. He's a great musician, Irish. And another Irish musician named Maurice Dixon, who played Boran drums and Celtic banjo on this album. So they recorded, obviously, their parts in Ireland at their studios, sent them all over here to be brought into my final product. So there, I always give these long-winded answers. I hope that's okay.
So, can you tell me more about your debut album called Dream Dance?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Dream Dance was really an album that I realized as I finished it up that it was helping me to process the death of my fiance, Keith Keller, who died in 2006, rather unexpectedly. And the loss of someone that you loved so deeply really throws you into a deep, deep spiral of self-examination, examination about life, examination about your spiritual beliefs, and dealing with your grief, all of these things at once. And it was such a powerful experience and really did transform my life. And there was a lot of gifts to be gleaned from that pain and desolation that I felt during his loss. And that's what went into Dream Dance. And Dream Dance is really, and it ended up being kind of a heroine's journey moving through that. The dream dance of life that we all are living in. It's, you know, that's kind of the theme of this album, is you're moving through all these stages of understanding yourself. Similar to What Have I Forgotten, to be quite honest with you. But this one was going through your joy of life, and then the devastation, and then dealing with that, like the song Wasteland is dealing with the devastation of that, and then moving through the healing, and then kind of coming out at the end. The final song on this album is called Spiral, which is really about spiraling up to your next evolution. So Dream Dance, like I said, was I laid in all the parts. So I worked with a lot of loops to get grooves and drum loops, and then I would lay in keyboard parts or guitar parts or vocal parts, and I just built it from the ground up, layering all these things in as I was writing. For this album, I wrote very much in the studio using a loop to inspire what I started hearing for the song, and pieced it together. And that's why it took a very long time. I think it took like 6 years to put it together. And I was learning, as I was learning the studio, I was learning the equipment, I was learning how to create loops and structures and slicing and dicing the loops. It was a very labor intensive process. And as I mentioned in my email last week to my fans, I almost didn't put it out. I was so full of anxiety and fear about exposing myself in this way, because prior to this, I'd been singing opera and doing theater and doing roles where you can disappear into the role. Here, I'm not disappearing. Here, I'm saying, here I am. This is who I am. This is the music I make. And I would wake up at night for the first months before I released it, not able to sleep. And I'm sure we've all had that experience with anxiety and fear. And as I said in my email last week, I had my little inner voice that I've learned to pay attention to, my intuitive voice that is never wrong. And you have to sort through all the noise and listen to that. And it said, there are people out here that need to hear this music, and you need to put this out for them. And so I listened to that, and I just thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I had to drop all this other stuff. And I'm so glad I did. And so are my fans. So that's Dream Dance.
So, can you tell me more about Naked Kate?
Sure. Naked Kate is my second album. And after Dream Dance, I literally had a vision. I'm not exaggerating at all. It came to me in one complete, again, that little voice with a vision, and that said, why don't you record an album with all the Kate Bush material and strip it down so you can really hear what the songs are, make it all acoustic, call it Naked Kate, and make a white cover with just you and the guitar. And it was really like that clear, the instructions. And so I was like, oh, okay. I just followed it. And once I announced that I was doing this, I'll never forget, I did a Facebook Live in the garden and I announced I was doing it and I played one of the songs. And then I thought, okay, now I have to make it happen. And it was an extraordinary experience because first thing I had to do was dive into her entire catalog, which I had. Hers is the only catalog I think that I have every single one of her recordings, and the only artist who I have all of her recordings. And I went and listened from start to finish, starting with Kick Inside, going all the way to her latest album, and figuring out what songs would lend themselves well to a stripped down acoustic approach, where you're focusing on the song rather than the production, because she's a lot about production as well. And I selected the material. I tried to get at least one song from each album. And then I sat down to start workshopping them myself. I had to relearn the material. And I realized I needed a collaborator to really bring it alive acoustically with guitar. And so I invited a phenomenal musician named Alex McMurray to come from New Orleans and record this with me and play the guitar. And he sang on a couple songs. And he and I worked via Zoom ahead of time, talking through the songs and my ideas for arrangements and his thoughts. And what I loved so much is he flew from New Orleans. He arrived like the day before the session. We had one day of rehearsal and he was so prepared. He had everything worked out. It was, not every musician does that, unfortunately, but he was. And so we rehearsed one day. We went into the studio and we had 2.5 days to record all the basic tracks. There's 15 songs. It's a lot of songs. We recorded all the basic tracks, him and me on the guitar. We got his vocal tracks before he left, before he had to go. He went back to New Orleans. And then here I was. We were so excited because it sounded so good. I was just talking with Jamie last night. I saw him at a party. And Jamie told me, he said, at the end of those 12-hour recording days, Alex and I would sit and listen to the tracks again and drink bourbon because they sounded so great. And I was like, what? Because usually you're like, I don't want to hear anything more. And then I had to finish it out. And that was a daunting thing. I had to finish out the percussion, some of the bass parts, some more guitar parts, all the vocals. So it took about 2 to 3 more months of me working on that in the studio. And then we completed it also in December of 2019. And that's when I put it out. And I have not put this on the streaming services. It's kind of a special item. You can only get in my shop, shop.nymphya.com. My fans love it. I love it. It's a very special album because Kate Bush her music is just extraordinary. So I'm really proud of this too, because it really shows her music in a way that you don't get to experience it otherwise. So that's the story about Naked Kate.
Now, can you tell me more about your EP sampler?
Yes, EP is called Curios. And I put this out after Naked Kate, before my latest album, What Have I Forgotten. I had a couple of my songs already written and recorded for What Have I Forgotten. And I thought, you know what? I want to put out a sampler of the best of my albums. So the first 2 albums, Dream Dance and Naked Kate, I asked my fans, what songs would you like to see on this sampler? And so they selected them, which it was wonderful to hear back from them. And so the songs that are on it from the first 2 albums are Dream Dance and Over the Hedge, which is from the Dream Dance album. And then the Naked Kate songs are Cloud Busting and Experiment 4. And then there's 2 more songs on here that are from the latest album, What Have I Forgotten? And it's the title track and a song called Liminal. So I released this between Naked Kate and What Have I Forgotten because I was like, I feel like I need to get some more music out for my fans because they're waiting, and it's, it's a long process to make albums. And so I released this one in 2021, about 2 years ago. And I just did a promotion recently for Black Friday for this, which did really well. And actually, now might be a good time to say to all of you watching out there in YouTube land, those of you who are watching this broadcast, I will give you a download of this sampler, all 6 songs, for free in a contest. And here's how the contest works. All you have to do is go to music.nymphya.com. Super easy, music.nymphya.com. And Nymphya is Nymphya. And just put your name and email address in. And that will opt you into my email, which you will also get other goodies, other free songs and wonderful behind the scenes things. When you do this, next to your first name, put the word contest. So if it were me, I would say Valentina contest. And then my email, nymphya@nymphya.com. And that way I'll know that you are one of the people that heard it here. And then you have until New Year's Eve, right, Ruben? New Year's Eve of this year. And from there, I'll do a random drawing of whoever opted in, and you will get your free download of this. So I'm really excited about that, because then you get to experience this music that so many other people are loving and emailing me about. Almost daily, I hear from my fans about it. So I'm excited to meet you too. So say hi to me when you opt in, and then we'll see who wins. And we can announce it, Ruben. I can announce it in my social media. Maybe you can announce it in a YouTube short or something like that, however you want to do that.
Really well. So can you tell me more about your latest album called What Have I Forgotten?
Yes, I'd love to. This was an amazing project because it ended up being this huge, all-encompassing project. After Naked Kate was out, it was actually maybe not very long, I started realizing, you know what, I'm feeling the call. I can feel the little itch. It's time to start writing music. So the first song I wrote was What Have I Forgotten? And it was a song really about the relic hunt of life, where sometimes you realize you've left parts of yourself behind that you want to reclaim. And what are those parts? And going inward to discover what those are, or maybe being reminded of something. You be out in the world and you're reminded of, I forgot that I used to love to do that, or I forgot that I used to be that way and now I'm not that way anymore. And that's a good thing, just being aware of all these parts you leave behind. That was what the song was about. When I wrote the song and I worked on it in the studio, I realized, going back to my Dream Dance days, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't face another album taking 6 years where I'm laying in all the parts. It's too much. It's too difficult. I need to work with a producer. And I didn't have one in mind, and I didn't even know where to begin. So all of a sudden, I felt really desolate. Like, how am I going to make this album? I can already hear what I want it in my head, and I can't do it myself. I need help. What am I going to do? So I walked out into my garden, which is one of my areas, my sanctuaries, and I literally did like a prayer in a way, asking the universe, can you please help me? I don't know what I'm going to do to make this album. A couple weeks later, I get a call to do some vocals at a session. So I go to the session and I walk in, and there is Francisco Vives at the console. And the minute I walked in and I heard what he was doing with his production, I was like, oh my God, this is the guy. And I was so happy because it was like literally 2 weeks after this prayer. And so I talked with him about it. We started collaborating. It happened. He was like, yeah, I'd be happy to work with you on this. So that's how I started working on this album, was with him. And it completely altered my workflow. So I would write here and basically lay in the timeline the basic tracks, maybe just the basic chord changes on a piano or my guitar. Like the song Pythia, I just played the entire guitar part here in one take, which was amazing. I didn't make any mistakes. And then I laid the scratch vocal down and brought it to his studio. And then we would start building up the parts. Francisco is an amazing musician. Anyone who has heard him play live and even has heard the album says, oh my God, he's incredible. He can play many different styles. He can play bass parts. He can also create drum parts because he used to be a drummer. So it was almost like I had this whole one-man band that I could play with. And his job, he kept saying, is trying to, based on what I'm telling him or examples I'm giving him, extract from my brain what I'm hearing out into the studio. So we worked on this for about 2.5 to 3 years. I would write the material and then bring it to him. I would do the main vocals here. The final vocal I recorded here, keyboard parts that I was playing recorded here, guitar parts that I was playing I recorded here, and we pieced it together that way. So as I wrote all this material, I looked at the themes of these songs, and I noticed, I'm very inspired by spiritual practice, and I've been studying what's called the Western mysteries for a long time. So a lot of these songs have those themes. And when I ordered the CD, and I was listening to it in the car, and I would, that order, no, I got to move that song here and move that song there. Because when you order a CD, you want it to have the drama, you want it to have a rise and a fall, you want to take people on a journey, like a set list, really. So when the final winning sequence, I sat back and I looked at it and I said, this is it. This is great. I love this. This works. Then I looked at the themes of the songs, and then I saw, oh my God, these songs are in the order of spiritual alchemy, which is this ancient, goes back to the Egyptians, this ancient spiritual practice based on the emerald tablet. And this is where it gets very esoteric. But when I saw that it was in this order of this stages of spiritual alchemy, then I was like, oh my gosh. And I didn't do it intentionally. I think it just came through. And that's when I thought, I need to write a book. I need to write a book to explain this, because it doesn't come across with just the songs. And so that's what I did. And that's where this came from. And that's what turned this into this all immersive project. And so this is the book that goes with the album. Also, I have it on my first vinyl. It's a double translucent blue vinyl. I'll show it to you in a moment. So when you get the album and the book, there's the back cover, you basically go deep into each of the songs. Each chapter of the book starts with an illustration. I illustrated this with watercolors. And then you get the lyrics. And then you get a chapter about not only the music, like it tells you about how the music is put together, but also about what the hidden esoteric meaning is underneath each of the songs. And then at the end of the chapters, you also get a guided imagery to take you into your personal journey so you can discover this meaning for yourself. And then I decided, well, I better record the guided imagery that I've written in spoken word with ambient music. So then I did that. So that was like a whole other hour's worth of material that you get. So it was almost like Francisco was like, you realize you made 2 CDs. I made the music CD, and then I made the whole hour's worth of guided imagery. So it's this whole 360 immersion experience. And I am so proud of it. And, my fans I'm getting stuff all the time about them, from them, about it, from the book, from the music. I can't even begin to tell you what it was like, life-changing. I think each of these recordings has been life-changing for me. And so now we're working on doing this live in the UK for 2024, which is also really exciting.
So can you tell me more about your latest single that you released called Outside of Time, Don't Let This Moment Go?
Yes, that song, I was in the library working on writing, I think it was the Pythia chapter in this book. And I had some music on in the background. And all of a sudden, music without words, because I can't write with music with words, like some instrumental music was playing. And all of a sudden, I just heard, Don't Let This Moment Go. And I heard a melody, and I was like, oh my God, a song is coming through. So I leapt up from my computer that I was writing on and ran in here and went to the keyboard and just started playing the chord changes and the melody. I just started hearing right away, just the melody, the chord changes, and that one line, Don't Let This Moment Go. And so I wrote the whole song in about, 8 minutes or something like that. And then I settled in to write the lyrics, and I realized that I wanted to write a song for my fans because the gratitude that I have, literally how they've changed my life. From that first moment where I was like, I'm not going to put this out, I'm too full of anxiety, I put it out, I trusted, and then I've got, you know, all these people that love the music and how it's affected their lives. Some people, I've got someone who said it even has saved their life from depression and things like that. And how much they have changed my life is huge. So I wanted to write a song about that and make it a song of gratitude to them. And so that's where it came from. And, you know, it's basically about these moments that you're sharing, like your time with me right now. You're taking time out of your life and your day to spend time with me to talk about my music. That's a precious thing, and I'm really grateful for that. When they choose to listen to my music compared to all the other music that's out there, it's like our souls are connecting in that moment. And I'm really grateful for that. So that's what the song is about, is these moments. Anytime you're connecting with somebody, a lover, a friend, a family mate, a workmate, and you're having this, you know, you're sharing, that's a special thing. Don't let this moment go. It's outside of time because it lives in its own place. So that's what this song is about. It's the last song on the album, and it really is a consummation of all the journey that the album takes you on as well.
Can you tell me more about you coming to the UK next year? So can you tell me more about what date you got coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to be there in August doing another performance that's not related to Nymphya. And then after that, I'm going to be spending a few months working with another artist named Rose Thorn. I definitely check out her music, beautiful singer-songwriter. And we will be performing my show, which is a combination of her music and mine, but it's called Magical Music from the Dreamery Outside of Time. And it's not just a band playing at a pub. We're creating a whole show. I did a first iteration of it at a festival recently here in October. The festival is called Hexenfest, and I did a Nymphya show where I tell stories and parables and weave the themes of some of the transformational stuff in and amongst the music, and also took people on a guided path, working a guided inner journey in that show. So this will be a larger version of that, where we are telling stories and weaving the themes of our music together with parable and poetry and some guided imagery. And so we will be doing them at art centers. It's with a full band, and we'll be rehearsing in August. I'm also thinking to come over early in spring next year to start the rehearsal process. Rose Thorn and I are right now writing the show together, and we've already created the through lines. We've already created some of the storytelling, and we are right now actively looking at art centers. We already booked one in Lichfield called the Lichfield Guild Hall, and it's a beautiful medieval building, which is we're all very excited about, and it's going to be in collaboration with Lichfield Arts. And we're working with a promotional team there. So we're thinking, you know, probably do maybe 5 dates, and very special. You asked me before we went on the air about merch. We will be selling, you know, all of this merch there, plus probably a tour T-shirt. And one of the things we're thinking about is doing a very special presentation, maybe at an art gallery or a very intimate place, where the ticket price includes the book and the CD or the vinyl, and also a reception with wine and some food. And it would be a higher priced ticket, but a very special evening. So we might put something like that together, and along with the art center's performances. So it's a very big project. We're very excited about it. And we don't have, you know, it's all formulating, so I can't give you specific dates and locations quite yet.
Finally, can you tell me how's being an independent artist for you?
You know, it's a mix of things, I think, for all of us. And one of the things that's the most difficult is we are the CEO and the janitor and everything in between. So a lot of it falls on our shoulders, and there's only so much of me to go around. So one of the things I'm looking for are some admins and people to start helping with some of the things that someone else can do, and you know, like I'm the only one that can make the music, but there are other things that other people can do that I don't have to be the one to do that. So that's one of the things I'm looking at, because I really do need help. It's a lot of work, you know, to do everything, all the social media and all the promotion and all of that. That's the downside of it. The upside of it is I get to create whatever I want to create. I also get to target my music marketing the way that I want to target the music marketing. What's hard about it is you don't have a lot of help. The large labels are still operating in the old school way of marketing, where they just throw things out there and don't do a lot of targeted marketing. Like, let's put a poster on a bus and hope that people who see it will like the music. Nowadays, because of the internet, we can reach people really more specifically. And I think the labels are starting to learn more about that now. I would not balk at the idea of being on a label, depending on the type of agreement that we would have, because what they can do is they can provide you with introductions to the right kind of people. So it's definitely a mixed bag. But the thing I love the most is my artistic integrity, and I can make the kind of music that I want to make.
Finally, can you tell my listeners where can I find you on social media?
Yes, well, below this video will be a lot of links that you can access my shop, my Facebook page, my Instagram page, my YouTube, my Twitter. So my main website is nymphia.com. And by the way, Nymphia comes from the Greek nature spirits, the nymph. So it's all about, being a natural being that exalts in the natural world and the magic and beauty of the natural world. So it's NYMPHYA, Nymphia, nymphia.com. I'm on Facebook, very active there. I have a beautiful community on Facebook where I post a lot of things that are just inspiring, not necessarily just about my music, just beautiful picture and imagery to help bring people to a special place. It's kind of like I want to just create a little corner in the internet where you can go for magic and music and beauty and spirituality and things that inspire you. So that's facebook.com/Nymphia. I also have a group on Facebook called Nymphya's Realm of Creativity, Inspiration, and Enchantment, where the users also post their own things that inspire us. Instagram, Nymphya Music on Instagram. YouTube, youtube.com/Nymphia. TikTok is Nymphia. Twitter, Nymphya Music. My shop, shop.nymphia.com. Spotify, Nymphia, the link is below. All these links are below. So I would love to see you, and be sure you enter the contest. Go to music.nymphia.com, put your name, contest, and then your email, and then you will be entered, and you'll still get some cool other things too.
Thank you for letting me chat to you today.
Ruben, thank you so much. And I hope you have a beautiful holiday season and a beautiful rest of your evening. And thank you for doing this for independent artists. It's been a pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.
Goodbye.